What we're going to be talking about today includes the FAFSA Completion Portal, as well as the FAFSA Completion Dashboard. We'll also be talking about some resources and how to best use your data in conjunction with these resources to support your students. For those who don't know me, my name is Sean Moran. I am the College Access Initiative's data analyst. I work with the FAFSA Completion Portal, the College Bound Portal, OtterBot data, as well as I manage and update the FAFSA Completion Portal dashboard. I know many of you from creating some of your portal accounts. So thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, we're gonna be starting out with just a quick poll to figure out who's in the room, temperature check about kind of like what are we doing throughout the day, what sort of framework we will be looking at data from, because we don't want to just look at this data as a way of seeing just how we're doing, but rather as a way to assist students, making sure that we are improving together in terms of some of the partnerships building, as well as understanding how resources can be used in certain areas. And please note that if you have questions, please mark them into the chat. We do not have a Q&A feature. Um, One of the people who is working with me today, Kathy Pham, will be helping just pick up those questions, and any that haven't been answered during the presentation will be noted during the Q&A as well as at the end. And speaking of that, I also want to thank Christina Winstead, who is also a colleague from WASAC, who will be helping with the Zoom logistics, and Rochelle Wise, who will be helping quite a bit with the chat and also dropping the documents. As mentioned in the beginning, for those who weren't around at the time, we do have a link to an acronym sheet because education has a lot of acronyms. We have a link to FAFSA resources, as well as any of the web links that we talk about during this presentation. And then lastly, we have the slide deck. So that'll be everything on this presentation. Okay, and then we're going to go into FAFSA completion portal ins and outs, the FAFSA completion dashboard, and then just a little bit of a Q&A before we go into other resources. So for those who are looking at using this presentation for clock hours, note this is worth 1.5 clock hours. Please make sure that you put your name into the chat or rename yourself so that we are aware that you are in attendance so you can get the proper credit. This is through ESD 113. One other thing to note is if you are in a group with others watching this, so let's say you are a team meeting and just viewing this, please make sure that everyone is noted so that each person can get the proper credit for this. Okay, everyone. So first off, can you introduce yourself into the chat? Please look at providing name, organization, where you're from. Do you currently have a FAFSA completion portal? And how long have you had it? So are you in one category, which is no, R2, or 3, which is yes, but different years? And then what resources have you used so far? Whether it's the dashboard, OtterBot, College Bound Portal, College Success Foundation, because we're going to be talking about this a little later, all of these resources. Okay, I'm just going to look into the chat a little bit and see. Oh, we have some people from Quincy and Sultan, South Kitsap. Okay, perfect. It looks like we get some people from the west side and east, so that's great. Okay. Oh, and it's great to hear some people know the dashboard, 12th year. Okay. Perfect. And thank you all for participating in this, because it's also fun to hear about like what aren't people aware of too. Okay. Perfect. Thank you all for participating in that. Okay, well, since we have a lot of information to cover, I'm going to go straight into the resources side of it and the framework. Okay, so why is the data that is seen in the FAFSA completion portal so important? Part of it is that we want to make sure that we are looking at this student level data as a way to assist students in a more proactive manner and to figure out why there might be some issues happening. But also, it helps us see what students have submitted and what students have submitted with errors, make sure that things are getting corrected. Another big thing is that whenever we're looking at data, it also allows us to think about what may a student believe and what may bring them to not complete the FAFSA? I will be bringing up something later, which is the WASPA, because that is an important part to these conversations as well. So one of the big things is I don't need the FAFSA. I'm going to vocational. And yet, so often in the state of Washington, you can get assistance through the FAFSA, through financial aid at the state or federal level. Also, people may think that financial aid applications mean I'm going to take out loans, and that's not the truth. So we want to look at kind of how can this data be used to correct things, to work with people, to better understand where they're at in their decision-making process. And one of the things I want to talk about too is what is WASAC? As we're talking to you today, many of you probably have already heard of the Washington Student Achievement Council, but you may not be aware of everything related to it. WASAC is a combination of many different supports. The whole mission is to advance educational opportunities and attainment in Washington. WASAC is a state agency. That means that we follow, of course, state government regulations, but it also means that we work a lot with state agency partners to make sure that we are doing the best we can to assist anyone who is doing this work, to assist young adults or adults in returning to a higher education or education after high school. Um, Okay, so an important note, as I mentioned earlier, WASFA. So during this conversation, we'll be talking about FAFSA data because the FAFSA completion portal only has FAFSA data. WASFA data currently cannot be shown because right now we are not able to make it so that it would not be distinguishable um, in the records between the FAFSA data, the WASFA data. We do not want it to happen where someone gets identified. WASFA data typically is related to undocumented students, and we don't want to put anyone's safety in jeopardy. And so we want to make it clear that whenever we're making these conversations about college bound, OtterBot, college and career knowledge, 12th year, all of these materials and resources look at WASFA as well. It's just the FAFSA completion portal that looks at FAFSA data. But we want to recognize that and just note it as something important. Okay, so the FAFSA portal ins and outs. One of the things is when I talk about this, I will be referencing the video quite a bit. I won't be going over everything, but I have included the video link in the webinar links sheet. And I just want to make it clear that one of the biggest things that we are going to be talking about is kind of how we apply this information, how we kind of dig deeper into it. But if there's other questions, you can always contact FAFSA at wasac.wa.gov. So, first is how do you get access to the FAFSA completion portal? You get access by contacting FAFSA at wasac.wa.gov with your work email, phone number, district, and school. Permissions do require you are in a role where you are directly supporting students with their FAFSA applications. This is part of the data sharing agreement we have with the US Department of Education in terms of the data regulations with FAFSA applications, because the FAFSA completion portal has the student level data. Now, we also have the FAFSA Completion Portal dashboard, which looks at aggregates at schools or districts, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But the biggest thing with the FAFSA Completion Portal is we do have both student NDAs and DSAs, so data sharing agreements, non-disclosure agreements, but we also have nonprofit or community-based organization DSAs. This is in case there's a nonprofit that is supporting all of the seniors at your school, then they can sign up for this. We do verify with the school that the nonprofit or CBO is helping any senior at your school. That is one of the requirements. If they're only assisting, let's say, 1/4 of students who meet this criteria, they most likely will not be able to receive the CBO access because they are not assisting all seniors at your school. Okay. So if a district data sharing is in place, which it is for most districts, then you will get a non-disclosure agreement to fill out. And each person needs to complete a non-disclosure agreement for themselves, for an individual account. One of the things that is super important is recognizing that when you are signing these NDAs, you are signing for the data itself, not the access. That means that if you were to take the information from the portal and let's say you share it with your team, that is in violation of the NDA and DSA. It is important to make sure that other people who are viewing this at your school, who also are directly supporting students, such as if you're in a counseling team, are also getting their NDAs filled out. Now, if everyone has an NDA in place and you want to have one person who goes into the portal, pulls the spreadsheet, and you go over it during your team check ins, that is definitely fine because it is an alignment since everyone has an NDA filled out. And you're just working with one person doing this, accessing it, and then helping the team. So if there's things about that that you have questions about, you can always reach out to FAFSA email. Now, if no DSA is in place, you will be asked to just reach out to your superintendent, see if they are interested in getting a FAFSA Completion Portal DSA signed. We want to make sure that the superintendent's office is aware because they will be the ones signing for the DSA and you will just sign for your NDA. And there is no limit on FAFSA Completion Portal users as long as they are supporting students directly with their FAFSA applications. Now, big news, this was mentioned a little bit during the College Bound Updates webinar for anyone who was in attendance there. We also are switching to a new DSA. That means that since the FAFSA DSA was expiring as of June 2026, we have decided to move forward with the new structure. That means we will now have a college access initiatives DSA. So college bound portal users will also need to get NDA signed. But if you are someone who works with college bound portal as well as FAFSA portal, you can actually fill out this one NDA and get both permissions or just one permission. And we'll be talking about the college bound portal a little later. But yes, the first week of November, we will be sending out emails explaining the process to district superintendents. We'll also be letting portal users know a little bit more about it and making sure that we get everything in alignment. So it is an easy process for everyone. Okay. So entering the portal. Once you have a portal account, to get to the portal, you will just go to portal.wasac.wa.gov. You're going to enter your username and login, and you will also need to set up a multi-factor authentication. This can be an email, a phone number, text. One thing I will note is there is a box underneath, a checkbox underneath the multi-factor authentication that says, remember this browser, remember me, is super important to click on that box because that will actually give you login for the authentication code for 3 days, which for many of us, it gets really tiring having to do the authentication code every single time. So that 3 days is very important. So once inside, you'll just need to go to Programs and then click on FAFSA Completion. These are some of the tabs you'll be seeing. There will be Home, My Account, Students, and Resources. The Resources tab will have information such as the FAFSA Completion Guide. It will also have the FAFSA Completion Frequently Asked Questions. That is another resource that is included on your webinar links document as well. And then it will also have information about some of the other resources we'll talk about later, such as 12th year. And many of you will probably do most of your time on the Students tab. So the Students tab, you can look at the current school year. This one says 24-25. Now it's 25-26. You can change to previous years to just see what your list looked like. This is especially helpful if you're trying to figure out why isn't a student showing up on this year's list? Well, they could have had expected graduation years from prior years, and then they wouldn't show up on this year's list because we do not double count students. So that it doesn't count against you, but it also would not count for you because the expected graduation year, they've already been counted once. But if the expected graduation year was already changed before the end of the year, then you might actually be seeing them on this year. Um, Now, one of the other things I want to mention is many of you will probably only see your school unless you have district access or are supporting multiple schools, especially for those who are assisting alternative programs. And then you can search by student SSID name, but you can also search by not submitted, submitted but incomplete or complete. Not submitted means that we have no records that their FAFSA applications have been processed by the Department of Ed. Submitted but incomplete means that they probably have errors. We do have a record that was submitted and processed. And then complete means that they are good to go, no errors. We want to get students to that complete, which is why it's so helpful to be checking on a weekly basis that submitted but incomplete list, because what that does is it tells you they're already interested. They've already gone through the work. It's just they need that additional support to figure out what is needed. And they can get that by working with you, going into the student application on the FAFSA side, and just checking what errors were going on. And you can check that in the student My Activity on the student aid application. One of the things is we do not have the ability to share error codes on the FAFSA completion portal. So it's just really important to make sure assisting them to get to that additional step and reviewing the application. And as you can see, a lot of personally identifying information is not highlighted because we want to make sure for privacy's sake. And one thing to note is it also says if student is a CBS student. So this includes if a student is in the college bound program. It does not mean receiving college bound, but what it means is that they are in the college bound program. And so it's just about looking into whether they need to complete the requirements later on and see if they qualify still for college bound support. Okay. And then FAFSA updated, that is the last transaction update. That means that if a student has completed the application, but they had errors before, it will have the completed date, not the has errors date. If they've changed things because they did a correction, that will also be the date you see. Now, an important thing is also how do you match potential matches? So students who we looked at the name and the birth date, the zip code, and most of this information is matching between the FAFSA application and the student record information from OSPI. But in case it's not matching enough, it doesn't reach that this is definitely the student, then they may actually reach the 10% needed for a potential match. And you may actually be able to assist them in matching them. If you click on View Details, if a student has completion status of not submitted, but they have a match of 1, that means there's a potential match, but it's not clear if they are a match. And so by clicking on that View Details, you can go in and you can review the match and see, is this someone who should be matched? This often happens, especially when the school record name does not match the legal name. Okay. So timeline of the FAFSA Completion Portal, we basically get most enrollment records by October. These vary based on district. It is all based on Cedars information. And the seniors list is based on information from OSPI on a weekly basis. And one of the things is we get information from the Department of Education, FAFSA application process data on a nightly basis from Monday through Friday. And then it is matched overnight with an algorithm. And usually we get our data first in mid-October. This includes those who have completed the FAFSA as of October 1st after, right? So sometimes it just has a little bit of a delay. As many of you have already seen, the FAFSA completion portal does have data right now, so that's very exciting. So I want to include some common questions that come up from the FAFSA completion portal. I would say these are probably the top 5 questions. So what if the school name doesn't match the legal name? Well, what happens is oftentimes they may match by a potential match, but there is some exciting news. We are looking at moving forward with matching based on legal name. So we are receiving legal name for students and we are working on updating the algorithm. This would mean that the students on your FAFSA portal, it will look at their legal name as reported on Cedars and match against the FAFSA portal or the FAFSA application legal name. So this is exciting because for many people, this will solve most potential matches. And for others, if there was a large enough difference, such as probably a few hundred students across the state, this will actually help them so that they match in case the names are just too different. So that we're also making sure that we're getting all of those pieces of information updated. So this is pretty exciting news and it is currently being worked on. So what if your students aren't appearing at all in the portal? It may be a sign that they do not have the expected grad year of this current academic year. It could also mean that there's an exit code the student has. So just make sure that the school exit code has been removed. That is crucial. And then what if the student was in the portal last year? As mentioned, we do not double count students. How long does it take to process a FAFSA application? Typically, it can take up to a business week. And this is done by the US Department of Education. And we are only able to view the processed applications. So if you see someone who gets a submitted email from the Department of Education, that's why there might be a bit of a delay. And one thing is on the FAFSA completion portal, many of you will note that on the homepage, there is a number on the table that says your school completion. And what many of you may see is, why is this not matching my student list? This is because the statistics that populate that table are done on a weekly basis. They are done on Mondays. And so if you've done a big activity, it may turn out that you will have a lot more students later on this week. So just look into it on next Monday and you may see things match more, be more aligned, I guess you could say. Okay. So, we've talked a lot about the FAFSA Completion Portal, but what about for those who are looking at how to support their schools, their districts, who aren't working individually with students? So, they're not working on financial aid applications. They would not have the proper permissions in order to get that student level data. Well, the good thing is there's still the FAFSA Completion Dashboard. This is updated on a weekly basis on Tuesday, and the information is based on that Monday's statistics report. And one of the things is some schools may not see their data. If a school does not have at least 20 students in their senior class, they will not see it because the data is suppressed for student privacy. We recognize that, but we also recognize that there's a lot of information that is still available, and hopefully, this can assist many of you as you are working with those smaller schools as well, and making sure that they are getting incorporated support alongside other counterparts in the district. Okay. So, what I want to go through is some of the views that are on the FAFSA dashboard. Okay. So the first view that many of you will see, it starts on the at a glance page, and that is on the top left of the screen. And what you'll see is this makes up a variety of information. It has the state, it has state FRPL rates, it looks at the district map. You can also change it to other maps. There are ESD as well as county and school maps. So you can also look at school FAFSA completion rates as well by changing that bar right above the map. Then on the far right, it looks at the leaderboard. The leaderboard was started this year as a way to look at kind of what are similar schools in terms of size and oftentimes location, looking at in terms of FAFSA completion rates. This is based on WIAA Athletic League information, and so not all schools will be reported on this one spot, in case you don't see your schools in that list. And one note is if you need to move between the different views, if you go to the top right menu, that's how you can navigate to the other views. Okay, the next view I want to talk about was the subgroup information. This tab usually has quite a bit of information because it's looking at a variety of subgroups. There are special education status, migrant status, FRL, college bound, and also race, ethnicity, gender. So the important thing about this is it can help you in navigating what sort of equity issues might be happening at your district. It can help you oftentimes see what are some things to be working on. As noted, it does not appear if you have less than 20 in a certain subgroup. So that is one thing to just be recognizing in case you're like, why is this not showing up? I know I have students who meet this subgroup criteria. And then the bottom view will actually show where the state is currently as well, similar to the at a glance page. Okay, as mentioned, on the top left, there's the leaderboard. This just says what leader kind of like what leagues you are part of, but it also talks about what other schools are part of the league and where they are at. So this can also help if you're looking at partnering with someone else. It's also a handy tool in case you're looking for regional resources potentially. And then top right looks at different districts, counties. It can also look at school level. And you can look at the FAFSA completion rates by these different areas and levels just by changing the top right region type. And then the bottom view just looks at where is a district at in comparison to last year at the same time. Important note is there's a disclaimer saying that We do not have any data at this time last year because the FAFSA data did not become available till the end of November, early December. So right now, the numbers are off on that view, and they will be showing up correctly in November, December time. Okay. And then we have historic trends. So this is a handy tool because you can look at different levels as well. There's state level, there's state FRPL, so free and reduced price lunch. There's also information on region types, similar to the ESD, the county, the school level is a different view, and then the district. And so one of the other things you can do is look at kind of if there were any times when you see sharp increases. One of the things to note is this only looks at the last week of the month. So in case you are wondering why does it look so different than what you were expecting, it will only show up at the end of the month. In case like this month, we do not see the data until this next week when it's the last Tuesday of the month. Okay, and then historic FAFSA completion rates looks at the last FAFSA completion rate in that time frame because one of the things is we have this cutoff mainly as a way to better align research purposes and also ensure we are looking at around this time, what did it look like in terms of FAFSA completion rate between that academic year, previous academic years? It is typically going to be the end of September, early October. That's typically the cutoff. And then lastly, we just wanted to include some of the organizational resources. Some of the resources you probably have already heard about, such as college access initiatives. I've mentioned 12th year, but there's also resources such as the FAFSA filers dashboard and the SAP dashboard. The SAP dashboard stands for Strategic Action Plan Dashboard. This dashboard is an annual dashboard that looks at a variety of things such as affordability, completion. It looks at different metrics that WASAC is using to figure out how are some of these educational attainment goals being met. And so it's pretty exciting to just look at it. A lot of it is in alignment with the FAFSA dashboard. It's just updated once a year rather than once a week. And then the FAFSA filers dashboard, instead of looking at just high school seniors, it looks at FAFSA filing in general for the state of Washington. Okay, so one of the things that oftentimes comes up, questions about how can folks use the dashboard. So these are some ideas that have been generated as a team. These have been ideas that have come from other schools and districts. So one thing is look at the subgroup report. Figure out who may not be getting the support needed and how can you incorporate other people, such as if foster youth has a divide or there's a large difference, then maybe looking into support from McKinney-Vento or passport liaisons in your district or area. Maybe if you are noticing something for special education, incorporating support from individuals such as your special education teachers or other peers, such as paraeducators and in your school, your colleagues. Because one of the things is we want to make sure that we are getting these supportive relationships at multiple points, because that oftentimes can be the encouragement many students are needing. Checking other schools in your district, seeing about collaborations or idea sharing. If you hear about something from another district or another school within the area, hopefully this can be something that can spark sort of partnership and maybe even moving forward with bring some of your events together, such as with Financial Aid Advising Day, or even looking at different events where they are partnering with someone already, and maybe they might be interested in getting participation, especially in terms of the struggles with capacity as well as finances, funding. We want to recognize how we can work together, how we can build that, um, and encourage one another. And then checking if monthly completion is rising after events and seeing about how this can help with future funding or planning. So, by using things like the historic trends or looking at the current FAFSA completion map and where you're at different points, this can be a way for you to talk to your administration about, well, this was where we were at. We were at 29%. And now we're at 32%. This is something that can really help in terms of figuring out if you need additional support or also looking at maybe ways you can refocus if you didn't feel like the event really had the push needed. And so hopefully using the data for those purposes. Okay, so this says use the Q&A function. We are using the chat function instead. And I would just ask my colleague, Kathy, if she wouldn't mind reading some of the questions. And we'll spend about 10 or so minutes, and then we'll probably do more questions at the end if we don't get to all of them right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. We are getting a lot of great questions in the chat. So if you haven't asked a question yet, feel free to keep the questions coming. Thank you so much for Rochelle for answering some of the questions. And I'm just going to go ahead and read it in order. We have a question from Renee. Clarification. If we have seniors who didn't graduate last year, can we switch the year and see if they did the current FAFSA?
I do not believe you can because one of the things is it would have been the expected grad year would have needed to be changed last year because they would have actually been recorded for that previous year. Um, so I hope that helps. But yeah, it would need
Thank
to be that previous year.
Thanks, Sean. The next question is from Nancy. I wanted to check, is this the same if the expected graduation is this year, but the student doesn't have enough credits to graduate yet? I have a student who has already submitted their financial aid, but it's not showing up on the tracker.
Um, I guess so. Are they saying on the FAFSA completion portal the student isn't showing up at all, or is it just that the match didn't happen?
Nancy, if you were in the room, could you clarify your question in the chat just so we can make sure to answer it? And let me see. Okay, as Nancy we will wait for Nancy to reply. I'm going to double check, but it looks as if there's a follow-up, I believe, question from Renee. Do we change a student's grad year in Cedars?
Yes, any information would need to be changed. And actually, I think this also works for Carly's question, the one after it. You update school information in Cedars. So, yeah, and there is what is considered high school graduation, kind of like year, which is kind of more or less where they are expected to be graduating, and then there's expected graduation year, which kind of has more fluctuation to it. And so, yeah, you would just update that information there. And so, if you have any questions about working with your Cedars admin, please also feel free to reach out to FAFSA, and we can just give some support with that.
Right. Okay, and I think this might all tie into the same question too, but Jody asked, is there a way to remove the students who have dropped or did not promote to senior?
Um, yes. So one of the ways to do that is you would need to also go through Cedars and the student would need a school exit code. So if a student does not have a school exit code, they will still appear for your list until they have a school exit code added. Um, and yeah, when we get the weekly lists, that is one of the fields we get. and so they shouldn't appear if they have the school exit code added.
Thank you, Sean. We have two more questions, and now we're switching gears to the FAFSA completion dashboard. Adrian asks, is there a way to filter, for example, to show the completion rates for each of the schools within a district or within an ESD?
I guess it kind of depends on which sort of view is being looked at. And so I might have to look into that more, but I believe probably the best bet would be looking at the school rates and but I think we do have the entity name, which includes their what district they're part of, but I'd have to look into that more. But yeah, it depends on each of the views. I would say if you want to look at the schools within the district, each of the schools, then we can always look at that and look at even adding a different parameter to it.
Sean, we have one last question from Marcy. Can you please revisit the subgroup tableau? I'm not quite sure what viewing all students no yes means.
Oh, yes, my apologies for that. So, a little bit of a breakdown. So, right here, we are looking at subgroup college bound status. That means all students would be all students. So this is kind of the general FAFSA completion rate. Then yes means those who are college bound students. And then no means students who are not college bound students. So if you looked at something like race, you would see all students, Black, African American, white, Native American, um, uh, Asian American. So that's kind of how it is. It's just showing the total or aggregate, if you will, and then showing each of the subgroups. I hope that answered that.
Wonderful, thank you. And if Nancy's still in the room and you'd like to clarify your question, feel free and pop it in the chat. There is another question, Sean, that's really great. It's a private question that we get asked or we encounter this quite a bit. The question is, if I am having someone help me with the FAFSA event, can I share my list or data from the FAFSA portal with them?
I would recommend not doing that. If you want to work with them and just kind of say, listen, these are some of the students that we're wanting to assist in the event or something like that, that might be something. But it also just becomes a little bit difficult because one of the things with especially ensuring students have that ability with CBOs or nonprofits, that they have the ability to kind of refuse service. So, like one of the things with College Bound is we have students who say, I do not want my information shared to nonprofits. And so we give them that opportunity. And so just recognizing that sort of thing for students, and also recognizing that since a nonprofit hasn't gone through the non-disclosure agreement, data sharing agreement, sharing the list directly with them is a violation of those data sharing regulations. But if they are working a lot with you, especially at different points throughout the year, maybe more than just one event, then I think it would be appropriate to encourage them to go through the nonprofit CBO data sharing agreement process.
Sean, can you clarify what if it is another staff member of their school or a student?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you meant a nonprofit. Oh, so for a staff member, if they are not supporting students a lot directly with their financial aid applications, I would probably recommend not showing the full list. You can always talk with them about, hey, I know some of these students may need some support, and maybe you just kind of filter it that way. but you do not want to show the full list. You may want to be more strategic so that you're also not breaking any sort of data sharing permissions. And if you have additional questions, we could always talk it out and figure out kind of like what it would need to look like, so that we're also respecting what's easiest for y'all while still respecting the data sharing regulations.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's great, Sean. I don't have any other questions at this time, but remember, we're still taking questions at the end of this presentation. So feel free to pop it in the chat. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. And I think if you do hear back from Nancy, we can always just answer it at the end of the meeting too.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you all for just providing some of these questions. Um, I know with data, it can always be kind of interesting. So we are going to share those three documents again. Um, Rochelle, if you wouldn't mind sharing those links to the um, FAFSA completion webinar list of links, the FAFSA completion slide deck, as well as the FAFSA completion webinar acronyms, that would be great. Okay. So these are other resources that you can use in conjunction with the data work you are doing. And I want to bring this up because oftentimes when working with this data, it can be very difficult if you're not aware of kind of what source supports are there in your area or as a state. So 12th year campaign. So one of the organizations that many of you have probably heard of is the 12th year campaign team. So this is made up of Christina Winstead and Yaslin Torres Pena, and they work on both the west side and the east side, which is so exciting, having representation from both so that they can meet schools across the state in various regions. They support both the practitioners through their financial aid webinars and trainings, as well as work individually with seniors and their families to assist them, um, especially on some complicated material. Because one of the things we are aware of is that every single year, there are a variety of complex situations that students are going to need additional support with. And so this is definitely a resource for so many people, and also because they've provided resources um, such as the 12th year campaign student and family financial aid events. So they have parent and caregiver nights. They also have it open to everyone. All sessions are in English and Spanish so that they can work on some of the equity issues that oftentimes takes place. One of the things to note, as we've talked about in the past too, is they don't just focus on the FAFSA, they also focus on the WASPA. And so they can answer a variety of questions there as well. Okay. They also assist with a lot of the trainings that go into the College Access Initiatives Training Center. So I have included this because it actually holds both information on in-person trainings, but also online trainings. And so when this webinar is done, it will be in the recorded trainings under College Access Trainings so that you can look at it if you're looking for specific information or details. One thing I want to mention too, before I forget about the 12th year campaign, is I have included a link to their Padlet, and that Padlet has a variety of valuable resources, whether you're looking at information for mixed status families, for foster youth, McKinney-Vento, unaccompanied youth. There's a variety of things that they've provided in quick and easy ways. So hopefully these resources can be of assistance. They also have templates on presentations and support when it comes to financial aid advising days. And then one of the other things is there is WASAC Wednesdays. On the first Wednesday of every month, you can go in there and just ask a variety of questions. Note, it is asked that if you have any questions that are very specific, where personally identifying information is shared, do not bring those here because the whole point of it is to respect student privacy, make sure that nothing is shared that shouldn't be shared. You know, we are all about FERPA, so we want to make sure that student and guardian confidentiality are foremost. But still, it's great to go there because even if you may not have a question, you may be able to listen and hear other questions that can spark new thoughts, you know? And so it's great to hear from um, Christina and Yasleen and just figuring out kind of like what sort of things are also going on in the world of financial aid and financial aid applications. Okay, next there's the Otterbot texting service. Now, this is a free statewide state-managed AI powered texting service, but that does not mean that it is true AI like ChatGPT. Instead, what it is there's AI matching where it matches the question to an answer that has been reviewed by an expert on that, whether it's financial aid, whether it's college access, whether it's something related to college bound. And so that is an important thing. They're not getting a variety of answers from who knows where. And so that is a crucial piece to this. Students who have a phone number in the college bound system are automatically enrolled in Otterbot, but they can always opt out if at any time they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But we always want to make sure that students are getting the resources in whatever ways are most accessible. One of the helpful things with this is it's 24/7 support to Washington high school students and their parents and guardians. There is a parent bot as well. So they can ask questions, but they also have campaigns. These campaigns have been developed by researchers or working in tandem with researchers to figure out what is the best material at different points in time throughout their ninth grade year, 10th, 11th, and 12th, so that they're still getting support, whether that looks like support on what apprenticeships look like, what are the different types of education after high school, or talking to them about what are things they need to consider for them to succeed in life after high school. Um, and then, of course, guidance on financial aid and college application process, career exploration, reminders. Um, it is available in multiple languages. So all the student or guardian has to do is they have to put hashtag language or hashtag Spanish to automatically change it to Spanish. But if they do hashtag language, they can also look at what other languages are available. And basically, the list is whatever is available with Google Translate, which is very helpful. Okay, so these are some of the content areas: financial aid, WASPA, FAFSA, verification, award letters, admissions and enrollments, um, college going info. So this includes terms, campus navigation, socio-emotional support, and then things about transitioning to life on college campus. So this can look at things like, okay, how do you go about setting up your housing? What are things to consider in the timeline of going to college after high school? And then reminders, notifications. So this includes application dates, especially we work with some of the regional applications so that students are aware about some of those scholarships. And then class registration, things for them to consider. And I just want to share, this is what one question looks like. So the question is, if I'm in the Rhine Start program, can College Bound help me with financial aid for class fees? And this is the answer given. Now, this comes straight from the knowledge base. The knowledge base has hundreds of questions and answers. Well, actually, it probably has thousands of questions because there's also fuzzy questions, which includes So can College Bound help me with financial aid for class fees in relation to Running Start? Or can College Bound, blah, 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 Running Start? So that's one of the handy things because we know not all questions are going to look exactly alike, but you can guess based on these key pieces. Okay. Now, another important resource is the College Access Initiative's material order form. This is meant to be a one-stop shop for y'all. So there's OtterBot, College Bound, and 12th year campaign information. Orders are processed weekly. They take about 2 to 4 weeks to arrive. One of the things they are updated on a weekly basis, just to look at where different materials are at. Excuse me. And that's because we want to make sure that we're not telling you, oh, we have this when we really don't. So we want to make sure it's based on what materials are in stock. One thing we do ask, please coordinate with your school and district staff when placing orders, because if you have 400 seniors, we don't want you to get 1,600 pieces of senior postcards because otherwise you may not know what to do with all of them. So we want to make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. Okay. Then there's the college and career knowledge. So this was made with the help of a variety of organizations coming together, such as OSPI, College Success Foundation, WASAC, and just a variety of other individuals across the state. And what it looks like is it is a workbook that focuses on a variety of topics in a timeline manner, similar to how Otterbot had a journey map, wherein students can actually get the support needed at different phases so that they can succeed in applying for education after high school. Now, the online has Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, Somali, Arabic, and Ukrainian. Hard copy workbooks are available in English and Spanish. There are also student lessons in case you would like to incorporate this in some way to assist your students, especially in a group manner. So, chapter breakdown. Chapter one is all about college and career. It looks at what do different types of education after high school look like? 2 year versus 4 year. What about careers and planning that out? Then it talks about getting ready. So it talks about preparing students for high school, making sure that they know things like dual enrollment and know about planning their high school experience to kind of put them on a good leg forward when they're working on graduation and life after graduation. Paying for college looks at things like grants, loans, scholarships. Washington State Aid looks at things such as College Bound Washington College Grant, Passport, the work study program that is done through the state. And then applying for college just walks them through the steps of what that looks like, the college search, and also working through some of the things they need to do for the application process. And then enrolling in college kind of works them through that transition piece so that they know how to get the support when they go to college or are looking at kind of life after high school in terms of that piece of just that transition in general. Okay. We're almost there, y'all. Thank you so much. And thank you for those who have provided some questions. So, College Bound Portal, I want to include this as well because besides the FAFSA Completion Portal, you can also assist students with College Bound Portal access. So, College Bound Portal has a running list of the students who are currently auto enrolled into College Bound. And one of the things is we also work with our portal users as we do not get student information when it comes to contact information. So that actually comes from oftentimes our portal users. And for more information about that, we of course have the College Bound Updates webinar, which I totally encourage y'all check out when it's up. We just did that earlier this October. But the College Bound portal basically allows you to look at students who are in the College Bound program, but also add additional details such as student or guardian email, phone number, address. This is crucial because the address is used to send them notifications that they have actually been enrolled into College Bound. That is crucial, especially earlier on, so that they know that they can prepare for an education after high school in Washington, that this is available to them. Then there's also the fact that Otterbot requires a phone number. So this is a resource which can help them so that they can ask some questions to spark further conversation with the counselors or with other support staff, because the truth is that if you already know kind of where you're wanting to go with some of your questions, you feel a lot more comfortable when going into the office, when talking to your counselors, when talking to your career support. So it's just one way to add that additional layer for capacity building, but also for kind of bringing students forward. So giving them that first step of encouragement. And then emails, we use this for messaging that goes out on a pretty regular basis. It just covers different resources for students. It also includes FAFSA reminders, which go out on a relatively monthly basis during their senior year so that if students are not aware of where they're at in the process, this can be a way for them to kind of get the nudge so that they do complete. And so, for especially students who are in the process of completing it, it can sometimes be what they need to actually click the submit or get their parents' support so that they can finish the last piece of their application. Okay. College Success Foundation, they are another resource. They are a partner agency that works a great deal with WASAC. They have regional officers who support professionals around college bound and FAFSA WASFA completion. And if you want to know more about your regional partner, please contact info@collegesuccessfoundation.org. And so they can tell you which of the regional partners assist your district. Okay. So I wanted to end this on a note of partnership building. So in the next 2 to 4 minutes, which I think we have plenty of time for. Yep, we do. Perfect. For the next 2 to 4 minutes, I ask everyone to put into the chat things that you are doing, such as working with community centers, libraries, workforce development professionals, CBOs. What does that look like? And what are other things that you've been looking at, resources? And then please give a like. If you like something, echo it, say something about it. We want this to be interactive, and when this is all done, this chat will be used as a resource that can be sent out, not just for those who are in attendance, but will be available to others as well so that they can get some tips. You know, let's think of this as a brainstorming exercise for us all. Sorry, I feel like I've chatted quite a bit about this. So for the next 4 minutes, feel free to write whatever you want in the chat. Okay, y'all. I think I'm gonna give probably about 2 more minutes for this, just because I'm really loving what people are posting. I do want to mention it is so great hearing about how so many people have relationships with their community colleges, with their universities nearby. It's also great to hear about so many libraries. As a person who used to volunteer at my library when I was a teenager, I will say that they are one of the best resources that many communities have. So it is great to see just how it's reaching people within the community as well. Yeah. And this is great. All of the talks about FSA support and then supporting students individually, especially for smaller schools, and then working with business partners. Yep. Especially because financial literacy, what better organization sometimes than a credit union to talk about some of those pieces? Okay. Yeah, these are such great ideas. Yep. Gear up, working with CBOs, and that's also wonderful. As mentioned, having um, just different ways of supporting students, supporting families, making sure that they feel included and seen in your community, different languages, different accessibility supports. I know, perfect. Yep. Trades, military. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, y'all. As mentioned, we're going to do kind of like a share out where some of these ideas will just be brought forward. And so hopefully you'll be excited to see this because this is going to be something that you took part in developing when other people get to see it. Because that's one of the things is we want to make sure partnership building doesn't just stop at the school, at the district. It should be how are we partnering across the state, especially in regions that may be similar to you, but may be far off in eastern, northern, southern, western Washington, or central. Don't want to forget central either. Okay. Thanks, y'all. Okay. So we're nearing the end, and then we'll just give some time for some questions. As mentioned earlier, for those who weren't here, this is available for clock hours. It is 1.5 clock hours. It is important that you mention in the chat or rename yourself so that we know who you are, so that we can match the attendee to the registration information, and that we are making sure that you get the proper credit. And if you are with a team and you are all viewing this, please make sure that everyone is called out so that we know everyone who needs to be given credit. Okay, so we've ended today with our Q&A. I also want to let y'all know we do have a short 5-minute survey. I ask that y'all participate in this because this is how we improve. And as I heard once from Christina, sorry, I'm calling you out, but I think this is a great way of looking at it. One of the best ways to um, really say thank you for a webinar is to basically complete the survey so that other people can get the support and that can improve and we're actually meeting your needs, you know? And this survey is also listed at the bottom of the FAFSA Completion Portal webinar links. So you can also do it even if you leave today, you can find it. And if there's additional questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you so much for being here today. This is the first of this kind for the FAFSA Completion Portal and FAFSA Dashboard. So I'm happy y'all could be with me today. And thank you again to my colleagues, Rochelle, Kathy, and Christina, who have been monitoring the chat, answering questions, and supporting with all the logistics. Okay, Kathy, if you want to open it up with any questions.
Yeah, Sean, there's just one question from Krista. She sent it at 1:54 p.m., but I'm gonna put it back in the chat. I think this link is old. When she had asked, the link on the WhatsApp portal for the public data takes you to the old Tableau, rather than the dashboard that you were showing. Could
Oh,
you clarify that?
oh, yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Krista. I will look into that and just double check. It could have actually been missed. It probably is the older one. For those who are familiar with both dashboards, we did make a lot of changes this year with the help of a partner organization. So we are using the new one. And so I have included it, but I will get that updated then. Thank you for mentioning that, Krista. Okay, perfect. Yep, always good to get those updated, those old links. Oh, oh, um, it looks like Jennifer said, please put that link in the chat. I can put that link in the chat, and it's also on the webinar resources document. Let me open that up, and I will get that added for you.
I can put it in. Is it just the dashboard?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat real quick.
Oh, thank you so much, Christina.
You're welcome.
Oh,
I'm just gonna give it a moment because I think that is it for all of our questions so far, Sean. We've answered everything with the help of Christina and Rochelle as well. Um, but taking a moment, if y'all have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Thank you.
yeah. And let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Christina, for adding that.
There is a question in the chat from Nicole. Who can I reach out to for clarification on some data? I was on the new FAFSA completion site and info for number of completed FAFSA state does not match the first time filers information. I want to track our state and local numbers. Great question.
Perfect. That is great. Thank you so much, Nicole. If you want to reach out to me, I would be happy to just work with you on that. You can reach out through FAFSA at wasac.wa.gov, and we can just go over some of those. Yeah, first time filers, it is a bit different, but especially if it's drastically one way or another, it would be good to just make sure we can explain why that is happening. And also just making sure that if the times that both are pulling from aren't matching, that's also something we can kind of address.
Thanks, Sean. We have another question from Jennifer. You may have covered this, and I am sorry I missed it. Do I need to log into the new link that was sent to see the specifics for my school, or just use the last
Oh,
WhatsApp access?
yeah. So, for the FAFSA completion portal, you would only need to use your portal access link. For the FAFSA completion dashboard, the data itself, the link that Christina shared, that link, you do not need to log in or anything. That is a public dashboard. Yeah. But yeah, if you want to just access your individual access, it would be portal.wasac.wa.gov. And thank you, Rochelle. I saw that you also added the three resources again. I appreciate that because in case anyone missed it, hopefully you'll have access to everything we've talked about today.
Seems like that's it for all of our questions as things are wrapping up. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, y'all.